G'day, mate. So it's important to start the day right. Get a little exercise here. The sun's just risen, Los Angeles, and got a copy of my big book here. It's the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And never had much interest in this book until about 8 years ago. So I always thought that this was for weak people who lacked willpower, who lacked moral discipline, who weren't prepared to take responsibility and accountability for their lives. And this whole step one thing, we admitted that we were helpless before our addiction. It's like, that wasn't for me, man. Any of my problems I could just overcome by pure willpower. So I always thought. People had often told me I could become anything I wanted if I just put my mind to it. And yet, I was about age 45, and life hadn't exactly turned out how I anticipated, how I planned. So I thought, I'll give this whole 12-step thing, give it a shot. I'm always into self-help, and went to my first meeting, and I was able to identify with pretty much everyone who shared. It's like, whoa, maybe I do have this thing. Then connecting with guys afterward, I was saying, yeah, I'm into self-help, and they said, well, this isn't self-help, this is a spiritual program. And I gotta admit, I've always had contempt for spirituality. Luke loved the McCarthy plan for the sake of the whole world. Never heard of the McCarthy plan, mate? So I'd always had kind of contempt for spirituality. I thought it was like cheap grace, that it was people trying to get the benefits of organized religion without paying the price of being in an organized religion, to quote Dennis Prager. But my practice of organized religion hadn't affected my addictions, right? My life still wasn't working, even with the practice of organized religion. So I became willing to give spirituality a chance, right? Heard of give peace a chance? Well, give spirituality a chance. All right, let's dip into the old big book. We of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. So this is the foreword to the first edition. And I'm not an alcoholic. Never been a drinker. So it seems kind of weird for me dipping into this book, the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm not an alcoholic. Like, what the hell am I going to learn here? It doesn't apply to me. I've never done drugs. Never been a drinker. So, say I had not much interest in this book for most of my life is absolutely true. But I did identify there, right? Like, when you really need to change, it's amazing how open you can become to things that you never thought of before, right? So this seemingly hopeless condition of mind and body, okay, I can identify with that because I just often felt like my life was going around in circles, that no matter what I tried, it didn't really work out, and that I was in the grip of like some forces, compulsions that were stronger than me. So I can identify with that seemingly hopeless condition of mind and body. I mean, there are times. There are times when I could identify with that. So, if if you want to relate to someone or to something like a book, you you listen to what they say, and then you think of all the ways that it could possibly be true, right? So we don't always want to relate to everyone or everything, but if it's really important to you to get along with someone or to understand a book and its appeal, then you kind of set your reservations to the side and you make a decision. Okay, how could this possibly be true? Like, in what ways could this possibly be true? What they're saying. Oh man, Beverly Hills, sun is up, air is clean and fresh. And okay, so I can identify with that seemingly hopeless condition of mind and body. All right, I'm trying to learn here. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. All right, so I'm not an alcoholic, but I'm willing to give this book a shot, this program a shot, because until AA, basically, there was no cure for alcoholism. It's ruined tens of millions of lives. So maybe these people have something that I don't have, or maybe they've uncovered something real. And well, anyway, I know that my own efforts have not resulted in success. So I'm willing to look at this new way of life. All right. To show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is the main purpose of this book. For them, we hope these pages will prove so convincing, no further authentication will be necessary. Yeah, so recovery is not something I usually argue about. I rarely get sucked into arguments about recovery. It's just some people it seems to work. The 12-step process seems to work. And the experience seems to authenticate itself. We think this account of our experience will help everyone to better understand the alcoholic. Okay. Many do not comprehend that the alcoholic is a very sick person. So I've always made fun of the 12-step approach of calling addicts sick people, calling alcoholism a sickness. Sex addiction, a sickness. Gambling addiction, a sickness. I've always mocked that, but what if something I've always mocked, what if it actually works for people? I guess as I've become older, it's become less important to me that things rationally make sense. And instead I'm more interested in, do they work? So I started going to Kundalini Yoga for a couple of years and didn't really rationally make sense to me, but it worked. I had these extraordinary spiritual experiences. I loved the community that I became a part of, and so it didn't really matter so much that it didn't rationally make sense. Or I'd get a girlfriend, and the way she would understand the world didn't rationally make sense to me, but I liked having her around. She was cute and she was cuddly. She smelled good, so it didn't really matter that she didn't necessarily rationally make sense to me. Besides, we are sure that our way of living has its advantages for all. Wow, that is a sentence. So what if you're not an alcoholic? What if you're not aware of having any addiction? Is there a way of living here that could have its advantages for all? And I think there is. I really think this is a superb formula for living that has its advantages for all people. Not just those who are alcoholics, drug addicts, sex addicts, gambling addicts, food addicts. yeah, I think this is a way of life that can benefit everyone. It is important that we remain anonymous because we are too few at present to handle the overwhelming number of personal appeals which may result from this publication. So, anonymity. That's one of the 12 traditions of 12-step programs. The opprobrium attached to being an alcoholic is, however, is far different today than it was, say, in the 1930s when this was written. So social norms change, and there are people in 12-step programs who think that we can dispense with the anonymity thing. But in case you're curious, the way the tradition is interpreted, it does not mean that you can't say you're working the 12 steps publicly, but you don't publicly identify with a particular program. That's the norm. So you can talk about you're in recovery, but you don't specify that it's in AA or NA or CA or SLAA or UA or DA or what. You don't specify the particular program. So as long as you don't specify the particular program, don't put yourself out there as the embodiment of a particular program, then you're not violating the tradition of anonymity. Another advantage of this tradition is that it kind of reduces the place of ego, right? So people aren't having to put themselves forward as the embodiment of a particular program. Okay, I'm just going to put the camera in my pocket for a minute here, guys. Okay, here we go. Let's get the mail. Okay. Okay, good stuff here. Okay, I'm back live, camera coming back here. I got the goods. Okay. When writing or speaking publicly about alcoholism, we urge each of our fellowship to omit his personal name, designating himself instead as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Okay. All right. So there are no real leaders in things like AA. I think that's one of the things that makes the program work. They're just people who volunteer to take certain positions for a time. AA does not take money, for example, does not take donations from people who are not in the program. And it takes, I think, a maximum donation of $2,000 a year, so that the ego, matters of prestige, don't interfere with recovery. Right. We're not an organization in the conventional sense. There are no fees or dues whatsoever. The only requirement for membership is an honest desire to stop drinking. So yeah, that's the great thing about 12-step programs. They don't accumulate property or power. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop participating in your addiction. We are not allied with any particular faith, sect, or denomination, nor do we oppose anyone. We simply wish to be helpful to those who are afflicted. Yeah. So this has been a formula that has turned out to work. Turned out to be a really good way of organizing people. All right, let's move on to the doctor's opinion. We of Alcoholics Anonymous believe that the reader will be very interested in the medical estimate of the plan of recovery described in this book. So it's being pragmatic, all right? People listen to doctors. Doctors have a prestigious place in society, so right at the beginning of the big book is the doctor's opinion. All right, here we have a doctor saying, I specialized in the treatment of alcoholism for many years. In late 1934, attended a patient who, though he had been a competent businessman of good earning capacity, was an alcoholic of a type I'd come to regard as hopeless. So I believe this is Bill W.'s physician here. Bill Wilson. I think he died around 1965. In the course of his third treatment, he acquires certain ideas concerning a possible means of recovery. As part of his rehabilitation, he commenced to present his conceptions to other alcoholics, impressing upon them that they must do likewise with still others. This has become the basis of a rapidly growing fellowship of these men and their families. Man and over 100 others appear to have recovered. So, when people are in a seemingly hopeless condition of mind and body, and then they make a miraculous recovery, and they attribute it to a particular plan, doesn't mean the plan is true, but means that others who find themselves in a similar condition of hopelessness in mind and body may find something of benefit. I personally know scores of others who are of the type with whom other methods had failed completely. So, for example, I don't think there's any consensus in the psychology profession about treatment for narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder. I was diagnosed with both of those in year 2000, and there's not really a medication that effectively deals with that, and this may not even be a course of therapy. It's part of the dark triad of traits, I think, along with borderline personality disorder that characterizes sociopaths. So a lot of therapists won't deal with borderline patients because they're just too difficult to treat. And a lot of therapists and psychologists really don't want to deal with narcissists either. May not be any treatment for narcissism in psychology or medicine. But my experience, there is a way out, and that way out is in the 12 steps. So narcissism means like an excessive need for admiration, an excessive desire for admiration. So people who are like a 9 or a 10 on the narcissism scale of 1 to 10, they're usually in prison, right? They're just so antisocial. I was never at that level. I've never been arrested, let alone charged or convicted of any crime. But so probably at most I was an 8. 7 or an 8 probably. I was never close to getting convicted or charged or arrested, but my narcissism expressed itself in more socially appropriate ways. But it was incredibly disabling because it exhausts people. It meant that I had no firm identity, and that I would be constantly changing myself to try to elicit the maximum of attention from others, which they found absolutely exhausting. So I want to check out the comment section there. Anything going on in the live chat? Alcohol is best for cleaning cuts. Any addiction is a sickness. Yeah. Okay. And what else do we have in the chat? I prefer my religion disorganized. You can do whatever you want to be. Malicious liars. Yeah. Okay, keep the comments coming. These facts appear to be of extreme medical importance because of the extraordinary possibility of rapid growth inherent in this group. They may mark a new epoch in the annals of alcoholism. These men may well have a remedy for thousands of such situations. You may rely on absolutely anything they say about themselves. And there's Dr. William D. Silkworth, MD. Wow. So that may be a little much, that you may rely on anything they say about themselves. But yeah, so back to narcissism. So one thing that people often experience when they enter a 12-step program is that they immediately start feeling better. Their life starts improving because they back off a little bit on doing everything their own way. They start becoming willing to take direction, guidance from a program, from a book, from a sponsor, just from random things they hear in a meeting. And so when you do that, you're kind of letting go of your narcissism a little bit, because you let go of the idea that you know how to handle things. And start letting other people into your life, start becoming vulnerable. You start admitting that your way doesn't work, then you're on the way to recovery. Okay, let's have a look here at the comments section. Japanese and German businesses have some of the most potentially profitable. They choose not to earn the maximum potential for the sake of their social responsibility. They rarely buy their own stock outside of what's mandatory. CEOs have little options. Vast technological innovations. Yeah. So, one thing that I've taken on as a spiritual practice the last few months, like deliberately chosen this, is to take direction. Like I have a volunteer position a few hours a week, and the manual calls for wearing a white shirt. So I used to wear blue shirts, black shirts, grey shirts, sometimes white shirts. Now I try to always wear a white shirt. So, I'm not getting paid for this, but I feel like it's good spiritual practice for me to take directions. And in the performance of my volunteer duties, I try to just strictly follow the directions that I'm given, follow the manual, ask questions of those above me, and simply carry out their instructions. Occasionally I have an idea, and I share it with, say, someone above me in the hierarchy, and then let it go. I don't bring it up in a disruptive fashion like I used to do in the past. I don't try to confront. I used to have this narcissistic problem. I'd always try to push myself into leadership of whatever group I was in. And that inevitably placed me in conflict with other people. just did not work out too well. So I'm finding just taking it as a spiritual practice, like in this one small area of my life, in this volunteer position. It's like, yeah, I'm just going to take directions and embrace just taking directions and not try to be a leader, not try to get my own way. Just take directions. I have some clients, they have certain needs, so I just try to take directions. Like I think I may know better, but I think it's been an excellent practice to just take directions. And that's like a little bit of letting go of the old ego and opening myself up to the possibility that in some things other people know better. Or at least it means that my own instincts, I don't operate on them automatically like I used to. Okay, I'm going to be back in about 5 minutes, guys.